Marty, thank you for joining us. You're on, brother.
Thank you, Eddie. And Eddie, thank you for that introduction. That was quite the introduction, and I appreciate it, my friend. Congratulations, General President Kelly. It's my first time I get a chance to address you in a public way. As Eddie said, I stood and we stood shoulder to shoulder in many battles with the fire department in the city of Boston before I was mayor, and on picket lines all across the city of Boston for other unions. I want to just say thank you. Eddie mentioned that I've supported firefighters my whole career. And the firefighters supported me back my whole career. And I just want to kind of set context here for a minute, and then I'm going to go into my remarks. Right after I got elected mayor of Boston, I had a chance to go down to Ground Zero. I'd been there before, but I went down to Ground Zero and I toured the museum down under the World Trade Center. And when I was down in the bookstore, I asked for a book. I wanted to read a book and look at one. There's a whole bunch of books on the table, and the woman that worked there got down on her hands and knees. She went in the way back and she pulled out a little paperback book, and she goes, "This is a great book." And I went home and read that book, and it was about a captain of FDNY that was in the second tower with his firefighters. And as the towers collapsed, obviously there was tremendous loss of life there. And in stairwell B, in the second tower, there was a pocket where firefighters and some survivors survived, and they were in there, and they were trying to get to the outside. They were trying to make contact with the outside. And throughout the book, they had talked about the FDNY on different radio stations and frequencies and using different equipment. And I thought to myself, as mayor of the city of Boston, this can never happen. First and foremost, wanting to make sure that my firefighters and police, quite honestly, were protected, making investments in radio, making investments in commitment. Eddie talked about the apparatus, talked about we're building new firehouses, we're industrialized cleaning our firehouses because of the cancers that so many of the firefighters have died of early in their life and not even getting to a chance to retirement. I've known, many of them personally, and I have tremendous respect for the work that the men and women of the fire department, of the international, and all across this country does every single day. I saw it firsthand. I see it firsthand, and I want to just let you know, in the Department of Labor, you have somebody who understands your work, understands the dangers of your work, not just when you get called to an event, a fire or disaster, but even when you go home, the cancer-related deaths and all of the other things, the heart attacks, all the other things that come with that, with your job. I want you to know that you have incredible leadership in your union, and you have a friend in the Department of Labor that's going to stand with you every single day. So I want to thank you for that. And that captain, he's retired now. If he's listening, I just want to say the impact. You are one of the reasons why Boston has every piece of apparatus changed, oxygen tanks changed, 2 sets of bunker gear, industrialized cleaning, new firehouses coming. It's because I said I would never let that happen in my city as mayor of the city. And I'm proud to say I work with my fire chief, Joe Finn, who's a member of Local 718, and Richie Paris, the president, as well as Johnny Souza, the president now. So some great leadership in Boston. Your union certainly understands where the labor movement came from, and how to move forward. I heard the conversation a little bit before that you guys were having, Eddie, you were having, about the importance that politics matters, that elections matter, and they do. They do. And what I've seen out of the firefighters historically is smart and strategic. It's resilient. It's tough. It's just like the firefighters of the job. And I want to thank everyone on behalf of all of your members. Boston, I'm not going to go too much into that. I already talked about that a little bit. And Eddie, you talked about that. I appreciate it. But supporting the rights and protections of firefighters and all first responders and all public employees has been a priority of mine, and I know yours, Eddie. One of the main reasons I was proud to join the administration of President Biden, who's also a longtime supporter of the firefighters, has been a strong relationship with the IAAF. He understands that the firefighters put everything on the line for us, and he understands that rebuilding our middle class comes before partisan politics, and we've seen it with his conversations over the last couple of weeks in the American Jobs Plan, but also the American Rescue Plan has invested billions of dollars in our community. And bipartisan infrastructure framework now moving forward is the largest long-term investments in our infrastructure and competitiveness in nearly a century. The president has came into office talking about finding common ground and getting things done, and he's delivering on that promise, and that's who he is, and that's what he's all about. This investment of the American Jobs Plan will make our economy more sustainable and resilient. It's going to create millions of good paying union jobs. The president said that the other day. And we're going to make sure that Americans of every race, gender, and background have an equitable access to those jobs. We truly have to deal to make sure we continue to work on equity across the board. President Biden and Vice President Harris believe that unions built the middle class, and that unions are the key to rebuilding the middle class. If you look at a map, a parallel to where labor has lost membership, you also see a decline in the labor. You also see a decline in the middle class in that same timeline. And now we have an opportunity to kind of turn the pendulum and move it back. We are committed certainly to make sure workers have a free and fair choice to join a union and collect a bargain. As you know, public service workers are restricted from unionizing and bargaining in about half of the states. We're going to do everything we can to support those workers' rights so they can unionize. All firefighters deserve a voice in the terms and conditions of their work. They deserve the strongest possible health and safety protections. They deserve full support when they're injured or ill on the job, and they deserve a dignified, comfortable retirement. And one of the things that I didn't touch upon, and Eddie, we didn't touch upon, but we were able to get 2 contracts done under my administration in city government that were good contracts for the taxpayer and good contracts for the firefighters, and to be able to make sure that we're respecting the taxpayer's dollar while we're also respecting and making investments in our fire department. And there's no reason why that can't happen around the country, and that should happen around the country. We should respect the rights of our firefighters. The president also formed a White House task force on organizing empowerment. It's the first time in history that a president has tasked his or her cabinet, well, his cabinet, maybe her eventually, we're promoting the rights to organize. I'm certainly proud to serve as the vice chair of this body, while Vice President Harris is serving as the chair. We're asking our entire federal government to look what we can do to support and encourage both public and private sector workers who want to organize. And that's something that's important. And we're asking workers and organizers what barriers that need to be removed as we move forward. We can have an immediate impact on federal firefighters. You might have heard what the president said about their pay at $13 an hour. He was not happy and is committed to raising their wages. And I will work to keep federal firefighters safe and get them the supports they need when they're injured on the line of duty. Obviously we have with wildfires that we've seen out west and climate change bringing more problems everywhere. We are certainly going to rely on our firefighters more than ever. All across America, firefighters stood up and showed us during the pandemic. And I have to give a shout out to my firefighters in Boston. There wasn't a minute that went by that anyone complained about having to work during the pandemic. And actually the system that we came up with actually kept our firefighters COVID-19 infection rate very low. The firehouse worked together. They stuck together. They made sure that they did everything together to keep our numbers low. And I want to thank them for that. So we need to continue to stand up and show our firefighters how much we truly appreciate them. And I want them to know that. I want to also thank you. I look forward to hearing more about your priorities. Eddie, I look forward to working with you, my friend. I've been around you for a long time, and I'm certainly proud of where you are today. And to the firefighters on this call today, I just want you to know you have no better fighter in your corner than Eddie Kelly. I watched him when he said he was a younger guy when he ran for president of Local 718. And I saw him take on the city of Boston because his firefighters, your colleagues, your brothers and sisters weren't being treated fairly. And a lot of people tried to get Eddie to back down. A lot of people were calling him and texting him and whatever they did with him. But he stood strong and firm, and he was able to win out the end. So Eddie, I'm proud to see you today, brother. I'm proud to see you any day.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, my brother. Thank you so much. Just so you know, President Biden told me to call him Joe when I see him, so I'm going to call you Marty now. But listen, thank you,
Marty.
Thank you very much. I know where your heart is. I know that you're going to put your all the energy and power that you have in the office that you currently hold as Secretary towards protecting all working families. In our personal lives as firefighters, we've identified 3 major priorities up here in D.C. and on Capitol Hill. You spoke about collective bargaining. I know that the president has actually tweeted about it. It's a priority for us. We have our own standalone bill filed by Representative Kildee in Michigan and co-sponsored by Representative Fitzpatrick on the Republican side from Pennsylvania. That's our top legislative priority, has been for many, many years. As you know, we have many of our states that do not enjoy the protections of collective bargaining. What that bill will do is enable about 80,000 firefighters and paramedics to actually have a voice at the table. And I know you'll be championing us and assisting where you can in that endeavor. The second priority that we have is our Medicare eligibility. As you know, we have a profession where you really don't want a firefighter climbing up a ladder at 65, 66 years old. A lot of us have provisions in the law to retire at a younger age because of the hazards of the profession. One of the challenges we have is that in many jurisdictions throughout the United States, our firefighters that are retiring don't have eligibility to enroll in health care where they worked. They have to wait for Medicare at 65, which in effect forces them to stay on the job longer, exposing them to carcinogens and traumas, et as well as the toll it takes on your body running into a burning building. So it's a major issue for us. We filed a bill that would allow Medicare eligibility buy-in at age 50. That's a huge priority for us. And I know that the president's his budget lowered Medicare eligibility, I believe, to age 60. So we'd love your help on that. I'll tell you one of the places that we talked a little bit, you might have caught the end of it, we talked about our federal firefighters that do not have the presumptions that we have. And as you know all too well, cancer ravages our job. About 70% of our members that we put on our fallen firefighter memorial in Colorado Springs succumb to cancer. It's a devastating disease that ravages firefighters. And in the federal ranks, we have 54 employees of the federal government that are now currently fighting cancer that have no protection, no job protection, and no protection for their family if they die. And that's something that I would ask you to work with us to help navigate the tape in the administration. Notwithstanding, I'm sure I know where President Biden's heart will be on this issue, but I'm sure that there is administrative hurdles to achieving what the president can do in order to protect those families. And in the very same vein, our federal firefighters, you may be surprised to know, have a regular work schedule of 72 hours per week. You know, the majority of our firefighters in this country work a 56-hour week. Some have a 42-hour week, like we do in Boston. But for firefighters in the federal sector, a 72-hour work week is an undue burden on them. And it's something that in 2021, with this administration, with your leadership and the leadership of Vice President Harris and President Biden, hopefully we can, what I would say, right these wrongs going forward under the administration.
I look forward to Eddie working on all three and some of the other priorities that you guys have as well, and ladies in the fire department. And certainly, as I said to you before, you know, you have me on speed dial. I have you on speed dial. So, there is an opportunity here. President Biden certainly has a long history of supporting and loving firefighters. And the firefighters have a long history of supporting and loving President Biden when he was a senator. So I truly appreciate that. And I know the president does as well. And I look forward to doing everything I can to make some major changes here for the men and women of fire departments all across this country.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary, and we'll be working alongside you to achieve that. I want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here. And please, as I know you have and I know you will, keep in your prayers not only our members down working on the pile in Surfside, Florida, but also the families of those that have been lost in that terrible tragedy down there. And thank you very much, Marty.
Thanks, Ed.